Okay, gang, we are set to roll. So good morning again. We are digging into our Mastering Buyers series. Again, definitely pay close attention to the chat box. I will be glancing at that and watching for your questions. I love for these sessions to be interactive and conversational. Again, I want to speak with you, not at you. So anything that you would like to share, I would absolutely love for everyone to be able to share. So let's dig in and let's talk about buyers. So ultimately, we spent a lot of time on the seller series, and hopefully you got a lot out of that. A number of you that are here today were part of that series as well. So I hope you were able to take good advantage of some of those details. And again, those recordings are available. They were going to be available on YouTube, but now are available in RSA. Go to the Education tab in RSA, and all of the videos are there. We've been able to make good use of RSA in that regard. So when we're looking at buyers, ultimately there are different aspects to buyers. Now, our session for buyers, I want to make sure that I identify the series that we're going to be looking at. So when we look at our Mastering Buyers series, today's session is working with buyers. This is a general overview of working with buyers and talking about the advantages and some disadvantages to working with buyers as a business. At the end of the day, we all need a balanced business. A truly successful real estate career is balanced with buyers and sellers, because as we enter into different markets, right now we're in a seller's market. When we go into a buyer's market, you need that balance of working with both. People say, listings are king and list to last, and that is true. However, if you don't have an equal balance with buyer inventory, buyers that you're working with as clients, you will not be able to sustain yourself in every market. So we're talking about buyers and how we can benefit from buyers in your business. We have sessions. We have 6 sessions in this series. And that is posted in RSA on the home page. So today we're talking about working with buyers. We then go into buyer interview. We then go into financing and the home search itself, how to navigate that home search with the buyer. Writing offers and negotiations will be following that. Working with the sales agreement and following through transaction management throughout the time frame of a contract with your buyer. And then ultimately wrapping up with the closing, handling the closing, how to handle the closing, how to do post-closing follow-up, and keeping in touch with your buyer long-term. So we're going to be looking at each of those 6 sessions and going through all of that, okay? So today, basically working with buyers, let's dig in. What we've got to look at is, what are the benefits of working with buyers? What are the benefits? Now, I'm going to be asking for anybody to share anything that they know as well, that they see as a benefit. But to hit on a few things. First of all, one of the biggest benefits is that there's less monetary investment with a buyer than there is with sellers. Let's acknowledge, with listings, you're spending money up front, money that you may never be able to recoup if you're not able to be successful in selling that property. So you're spending money on advertising and marketing and getting that property out there. With buyers, you don't have those upfront costs. You do have the costs of course, gas, getting from showing to showing, the time, the emotion, but you don't have the monetary expense that you would with the seller, okay? In generally speaking, you have with a buyer less overall time of involvement with the buyer. In general, if you're able to find them something quickly, then ultimately you're closing within 45 days, maybe 60 days. Whereas with a seller, there's sometimes maybe time to market, then time to close, and what have you. In today's market, of course, we're in a seller's market. So buyers may actually be taking more of your time, because there are buyers that are missing out on several properties on an ongoing basis. And it's harder and harder to get a buyer a property, to find them a property that they can actually bid on. And in many cases, when they actually bid on it, they're losing out to multiple offers. So depending on the market will determine how much time investment you have with your buyers. The biggest benefit of buyers is your personal interaction and the ability to build rapport. When you work with a buyer, you're out there working with them, showing them properties, you're communicating with them, you're learning more and more about their wants and needs on a regular basis. You can get a good sense of what they need and what they're all about. And conversation happens organically, and you get to know them on a personal level. Conversely, with sellers, you don't really get the chance to know them. You know, we talked up front, you do your wants and needs, and with buyers, as we'll talk, you're going to do the same thing. But with sellers, you may be calling them with an update, you may be calling them to discuss what's happening in the market, but you're not really taking the time to talk to them, and sometimes you don't have the opportunity to talk to them about what's happening in their personal lives like you do with that of a buyer, okay? That rapport also in many cases translates to more referrals. You will find that your buyer clients will generally offer you more referral opportunities long term than your seller clients. Your sellers will be very impressed. I have no doubt they'll be impressed, and they'll be happy that you were successful on their behalf. But at the end of the day, they don't have the rapport and the relationship that you might have. If you picture your seller and buyer clients, and you look at the relationships that you formed over time, and you look at the people you're in touch with more so, you tend to gravitate towards longer, closer relationships with buyers because you get to know them on a different level. So that's one of the biggest benefits, okay? So comment here, lately I feel married to my buyers, and with some the honeymoon is over. That is such a true statement. You know, it's you know, how can we possibly keep people picked up? How do we pick up their emotions over and over and over again? And you know, it's the honeymoon is over because it's just you're running out of things to say to them. Conversations in today's market when they're losing out on a lot of properties, you know, it's you're trying to motivate them. We've become counselors to our buyers in today's market. You know, I heard recently we have a buyer who's made an offer on 10 properties and have lost out on 10 properties to multiple offer situations. How do you pick them up emotionally to fall in love with the next one? It's just not easy. Okay. Are there any other positives, any other you know, benefits that anyone wants to share in working with buyers that I haven't touched on? Anyone at all? Again, I'm watching our chat box. Okay, so I'm going into our drawbacks, all right? So let's look at the drawbacks of working with buyers. Now, you know, we just talked about that. When you're in a seller's market, it's tough to emotionally keep your buyer engaged, you know? But, you know, buyers in general, in many cases, they're uncertain of what their actual goal is, aren't they? Many buyers don't know what they're looking for. There's an expression out there, buyers are liars. I don't agree with that statement. Buyers aren't liars. They just don't know what they want, and they have yet to figure it out. And at the end of the day, they will know it when they walk into it, because you can find them the perfect house that meets exactly their criteria that they told you they were looking for, but they're not going to fall in love with it because it's an emotion. You can't change it. So it's not that they're lying and not telling you what they're looking for or being sincere. It's that they just don't know until they walk into it, okay? So they're also very emotional, aren't they? Now, sellers are emotional about accomplishing their goals, but buyers, I mean, this is their dream. This is the reality. Your sellers who are now buying, you know, they're filling a need. You know, we say you buy a home, you sell a house. So that's an emotional purchase. So that buyer is going to be much more emotional than your seller is when the seller is selling a property, okay? So ultimately, you know, we're dealing with those emotions and trying to manage them. Another drawback of working with buyers is that our compensation is dictated in large part because of by the listing agent, because of the fee that's offered in MLS. In general, if you're working with buyers and you're not working with a buyer agreement, you are dictated by the compensation as offered in MLS, and that can vary at any time. And that can be disappointing if that fee is low. we'll talk in our series about working with buyers and working at getting them into a buyer agreement so that you feel they feel your value, and that you feel comfortable knowing that you're going to be compensated for your time. Okay. Inventory, of course, is a drawback, especially in today's market. We're in a seller's market. We are dictated by the inventory for our buyers, and in today's market, it's very low. The inventory is very low. 1,400 single-family homes on the market in the entire state of Rhode Island. That inventory is low, gang. So be aware that, you know, that's one of your biggest limitations, and I'm sure you already see that and already know that. And with buyers, another thing that comes to mind is that you know, their financial limitations limit your availability, your ability even to be successful on their part. There are many buyers that qualify for a certain price range, but their needs are putting them beyond their own means. It's hard to find them something that meets their needs while staying within their price point as well. So, you know, that's another drawback in working with buyers. You know, pros outweigh the cons, but I want to make sure that we're talking about both. Anybody think of anything else that might be a potential drawback in working with buyers? Anyone? Feel free to share, raise your hand. Okay. I want to go into, you know, yes, there are pros and cons and what have you, but at the end of the day, we need to understand what the buyer's needs are, and the biggest thing they need is representation. And everyone knows my passion for agency and representation and how we interact with our clients and customers. We need to know at every moment in time who we're representing. Now, we have different relationships that we can take on with any consumer. When we're looking with the buyer, we have two forms of relationship we can take on. You can work with the buyer as a transaction facilitator, or you can work for the buyer as a designated client representative. That client needs to understand from the onset what your relationship is with them. If they happen to come into your listing where you're representing the seller, then your only ability to work with them when you first meet them is to work as a transaction facilitator if they're interested in that property. In transaction facilitation, you do not represent that buyer. You're working with them, not for them, as a buyer. Now, if they're not looking at a property that you have listed and you just meet them at an open house and you're going to go out and work with them, you can continue to work with them as a transaction facilitator. Out the gate, we all work with consumers as a transaction facilitator until they designate us otherwise. The buyer can choose to have you represent them as a designated client representative and graduate. I like to use the expression graduate. They graduate from transaction facilitator to designated client representative on their behalf, and you're working for them as a consumer. It's important that you know that in working for your buyers, you cannot be discussing any of their personal information. You cannot be negotiating against their best interest when it comes time to an offer, to present an offer. You need to be sure that you are standing beside your client every step of the way, even if you don't agree with what they're offering or what they're counter offering. You need to understand that. The only time that you will go into what's called the neutral dual facilitation is if you're already working with a buyer. You have a pre-existing relationship with a buyer and a pre-existing relationship with a seller, and they come together on the same property. You have to have a pre-existing relationship with both parties for it to even be considered as a dual facilitation. And in a dual facilitation, what you need to remember is that you are actually working for neither party. Neither party has representation. You are only working with both parties. So be mindful of that. But I talk about the representation because it's important. We're going out and we're marketing for buyers. We're trying to build relationship. We're trying to gain clientele with these consumers and having them work with us. It's important for you to understand what your relationship is and for them to understand what the relationship is. You know, you need to be able to explain this. The law says you need to discuss representation at the first point of contact no later than the time of providing confidential information. And we'll talk today about some of the questions to try and get some information and gather details from them. The second you start asking questions, what are you looking for? What can you afford? When do you need to move? Those questions become confidential in nature. You should not be asking these questions until you've discussed with them their rights as a consumer as it relates to representation, okay? There's a disclosure form that they need to sign at the time you discuss it, or you can complete the back of it and make a note if they refuse to sign something because it's just too soon and people are afraid to sign anything, okay? So, you know, but make sure you have that form in your file. We're required to have all forms on record that you have discussed with them their rights as a consumer, okay? Any questions on representation? Anyone at all? No one, or you're typing really slowly. Okay, so we're going to continue along. So let's talk about where do we find buyers. Okay, let's talk about the search for buyers. The hunt is on. We need buyers. We want to get buyers to work with. Where do we find them? Okay, so there are a few places that we're going to find buyers. Okay. And we're going to talk about each one. We've got your sphere of influence, the people you know and the people they know, people that already know you, like you, and probably trust you. The biggest overlooked source of buyers is your sphere of influence. Because in most cases, when you get into real estate, people say you need to go out and prospect. You need to go knock on doors. You need to go, you know, do open houses, all of that stuff. Yes, that's all important. But that means you're overlooking the people that are near and dear to you, okay? There are internet leads. There are social media, relationships with affiliates, referrals, gaining referrals. There are so many places that you can get buyers, and I want to talk through each one. So, you know, first we'll go back to that sphere of influence because I don't want to overlook it. Who you know, who they know. Have you reached out to everyone in your sphere of influence so that they know that you're in real estate? Now, some of you have been in real estate a long time, like myself. Have you reached out to them recently? Do they know you're still in real estate? We assume that people know that we're in real estate. The harsh reality, gang, is that if you are not top of mind in their mind when the time comes that they consider making a move, they are not going to remember you. I don't care how much they love you. I have a lot of people who love me and I love them, but they have listed with other people because they forgot about me. And it's not because they truly forgot about me. It's because at the time that they had a need, they were talking with somebody else and everything just snowballed. Sometimes your own sphere of influence will go to an open house, fall in love with the house. The agent will start talking to them. Oh, do you have a house to sell? Yes, we have a house to sell. Oh, I can help you with that. And just the conversation happens, and before you know it, they're in contract. Okay, and you see somebody, your I hate to say sibling, but I've seen it happen. But you know, let's say it's your first cousin who you're pretty close to, and you see them post on Facebook that they're making a move or just buying a house, and you're thinking, what? So you call them and say, what happened? Oh, you know, Dean, it just didn't even dawn on me to call you. I didn't know that you could show me something if it's not your listing. I thought you could only show me houses that you had on the market. We went to an open house and fell in love. You know, so is that their fault or is it mine? It's mine and it's yours. If you're not in touch with them and don't explain to them how it works, you never know when somebody's going to think of making a move. When somebody decides to make a move, it happens very quickly because they get that little fire in their belly and they get all excited. And don't be fooled by anybody who says, oh, we're gonna wait a while. It doesn't happen. You know, once you get the bug, you get the bug, okay? So be in touch with everyone you know. Be in touch with anybody they know. Ask them, do you know of anybody that's thinking of making a move? Has anybody at work mentioned making a move? Anybody at church? Give them examples of groups that they may be affiliated with in order for them to think about that. Because generally speaking, when you say, do you know anybody, they think of their immediate little circle, and then you go beyond it. How about at work? How about at church? You know, whatever that is. Okay, sphere of influence, the biggest source of business, because you don't have to prove yourself. You've already proven yourself. Okay, so don't lose sight of that. Out the gate, everybody says, go knock on doors, go do open houses, do cold calling, all of this stuff. For whatever reason, they don't train us on how to build a business with our own network. Okay, you know, and then we've got internet leads, another thing. That's another source that people say, buy internet leads. Okay, I don't know if any of you are buying internet leads, but you need to be mindful of the expense that comes with that. There are different types of internet leads. There are some internet leads where you're going to be paying up front in order to have the possibility of leads. Or there are some you're going to pay for the lead upon closing. Now, you've got to decide which format works best for you based on the result that you're looking for. The thing is with internet leads, though, we call it lead capture for a reason. With internet leads, you captured their information. And you need to be mindful how anybody reacts when they've been captured. Okay? Picture an animal who gets caught in a trap. They're captured. How do they respond? They react. They retaliate. The buyers will ignore you. You know, all of a sudden you're going to get these comments from people or blocked by people. And all you're doing is following up on the lead. But how many of you look at your phone when a spam call comes in or a call you don't recognize and you say, oh, I'm so sick of these calls. I'm sick of these calls. Well, with internet leads, you're that call, okay? National average for conversion of internet leads is 2 to 4%. 2 to 4%. Do you know how many internet leads you need to receive in order to actually convert at a rate of 2 to 4% with enough to put food on your table? Okay, I'm not saying don't do internet leads, but I need you to know the reality of them when everybody says go spend the money and go, you know, go invest in internet leads. There are also some lead sources that are shared leads, so you be mindful. If you're going to buy internet leads, make sure you know the details of those leads. Many leads are exclusive, but some are shared. And when I say shared, if you're paying less for shared leads, and those leads get shared with more than one agent, and the person who reaches them first gets the lead. So you may pay less, but you're going to share it. There's greater risk. You need to be on top of leads. For internet leads, you need to be calling almost within seconds. There are agents who have robocalls that are actually returning calls for internet leads to ensure the conversion. The goal is to contact first. If you're going to get an internet lead and call them an hour later, you may as well save your money. Okay? We've got a couple of comments, and I want to make sure I look at them. Valerie's mentioning Opcity. Opcity is good because you don't pay until closing, and they actually have the buyer on the phone, so you speak with them immediately. So Opcity, really great source. As a company, we have an account with Opcity. So you can request for Opcity to be part of that account in order to obtain those leads. So if you are not part of that, please contact Opcity and or Agent Services so that we can connect you with that lead source. Okay, so great, thanks for mentioning that. Roxanne mentions, I had someone answer the phone the other day. Domino's, pick up our delivery. Stop calling me. You know, and you texted him back and let him know I was, and he called back and apologized. Now an active buyer. So good for you for converting, Roxanne, because ultimately that person answered the phone knowing that he didn't know you, or at least at the time didn't know you. So, you know, he had a little fun with it and said, you know, pick up our delivery. But you were able to get back in touch with them and let them know who you were. So good for you for converting and that you're working with them as an active buyer. Sometimes you need to make it light as well, you know, and just find a way to bridge that gap. So your follow-up with a text allowed him to realize that, you know, he may not have wanted to hear from you at that time, but, you know, he may need your help. So so good for you. Next time order a pepperoni and see if he delivers. But have fun with it, make it light. All right, so thanks for that feedback. Okay, so that's what's happening with internet leads, and we need to know how it affects you, what the benefits and the drawbacks are. Again, I'm not saying don't do internet leads. We just need to know the reality of those internet leads. Okay, another big source of buyers is social media. I think all of you are on social media, different social channels. Don't spread yourself too thin on social channels. Okay, there's Facebook, there's Instagram, there's LinkedIn. There are all of these different platforms that you can be on. People say you need to be everywhere. Well, you need to be everywhere if you have a full-time administrative person assisting you, because you can't possibly be everywhere. Don't get sucked down the rabbit hole with each of your sources. Facebook is a big one. You can keep in touch with people. You can see what's happening in people's lives. Know that it needs to be social. They call it social media for a reason. So if you're just going to go in and post your new listings and then never look at it again, that gets old. People won't respond to that. So you need to interact. When people comment on your post, you need to comment back. Thank you for posting, whatever that looks like. If you hate social media, find a way to go onto it and just comment on other people's posts. Okay? People notice when you comment on their posts. That's why people post. Let's look at it. People don't post everything they do all day because they're hoping people don't notice. They're hoping people notice. So you noticing what other people are doing will go a long way, even if you don't know what to post yourself. Post here and there, mention something that's going on in your life. If you went out for dinner, you're enjoying a nice walk, people like to see that stuff. People don't care if just, you tripped and stubbed your toe and, all these things. Don't overpost, but interact with people. Again, we call it social for a reason. Instagram, LinkedIn. LinkedIn is like a professional social media site. It's like a professional Facebook. LinkedIn is important. Business colleagues, you can post right within, the comments and the remarks section on LinkedIn as well. But it just makes it a little bit more of a professional platform where, people are working with colleagues rather than just friends and family and what have you. So, but you need to be there. You need to be out there. You need to be visible. People watching your posting. By the way, gang, there are platforms out there that can post to all of your social channels just at a cost. You can do a monthly subscription for any of those. I think Sprout Social is one that we've used in the past that does that. There are different social media companies, different marketing companies that actually handle that. Options Photography is somebody that we've worked with. Options Photography and Marketing. They do marketing for many of our agents, photos and profiles and just overall marketing. And they also manage social media. So, there are others. There are many others. Those are a couple that come to mind. So if you're looking for any tips on that, go to any of our collaboration groups in Facebook and, just post, hey, who's using, so-and-so, what services are available out there. You will get all the information that you needed, okay? So, all of the social channels, be on them as well. So let's look at our affiliate relationships. Another untapped source of referrals is your affiliate relationships. Many of you have relationships that you've built over time, and many of you are just starting your relationships. Whether it's loan officers, attorneys, appraisers, insurance, inspectors, home inspectors, whoever it is you're working with. As a realtor, we have the ability to refer customers to these business practitioners, these affiliates, and we feed that relationship because we like having a personal relationship. We like to refer people we like. By the way, your friends and family feel the same way. They like to refer people that they like. You like to refer people that you like. You're going to build a rapport with these affiliate relationships. Know that from time to time, there's a chance they know somebody looking to buy or sell real estate. Now, I understand that home inspectors work with so many realtors. How can they possibly give everybody business? I understand that. Same thing with closing attorneys. Closing attorneys get the tail end of a transaction. They see the client at the end, not at the beginning, so it's tougher for them. Loan officers. Loan officers are pre-qualifying buyers every day. I guarantee you that not all of them have an agent. So this is not something that you are going to handle strong-handedly, but you need to be able to create a reverse prospecting relationship with any of your affiliate relationships. Okay, if you are going to consistently refer business to a loan officer, ask them if they have any buyers that they've pre-qualified that do not have an agent. Home inspectors, appraisers, again, anything, insurance providers. How many buyers are contacting insurance companies just to get an idea of insurance costs and they haven't even found a house yet? It is possible. So now, realize they may not have as many leads to go around. Loan officers, I think, do. I think they have a mechanism by which that they solicit leads. The others may not have as much, but don't be afraid to ask for reciprocation when it comes to referral resources and insights. You need to make sure that you're providing that. Both of you are providing mutual success in referrals, okay? So look at that as well, okay? Referrals, when we're talking about referrals, not just referrals from loan officers and vendors and what have you, but personal interactive referrals. There are so many referral groups, even just in Facebook alone, where practitioners across the country and internationally are providing referrals between colleagues. Make sure you are on networking groups, you're on different sites, and you're part of this networking. You can provide referrals outgoing as well as incoming. Make sure you're asking any of your clients, if they're relocating, if they need help in another state. If you're selling a property for a client and they're relocating, don't think for a second that you don't have opportunity on the other end. Immediately ask, where are you going to? Do you need someone to help you in that area? I can contact a colleague and help you source a realtor that can best suit your needs. Now, you may not know somebody in that state. That's okay. But as a professional, you can help them source. Just like they're going to go out and what are they going to do? They're going to Google an agent. They're going to go to an open house. They're going to possibly meet the wrong agent, somebody who's not willing to go the extra mile. You can actually source the agents. You can go into networking groups. You can find opportunities. If no networking group is available to get that information, you can contact the Board of Realtors to find out what agencies are doing the predominant market share in that area. You can contact agencies and speak to the manager. Hey, I have an incoming referral, client coming to your area. I'm looking for an agent that is like this and does this and things like this. And and that manager can help you find an agent on their team, to service that buyer or seller. So don't hesitate and make sure that you're giving those referral opportunities and getting those referral opportunities. We have a referral form right in our system for you to collect. A common referral fee is 25%. I've seen them as high as 35% of the commission on that transaction when it closes. So make sure you stay in touch. When you send out a referral, put them on some sort of drip campaign and just keep in touch, see how your client's doing, or touch base with the client and see how they're making out to ensure that you referred them somebody that they can depend on. Okay, so it's just a huge source of business for you at any time. Again, I'm watching chat box. If you have any questions, I want to make sure that we're hitting on all of them. Okay. Tammy, you have referral information. You want to share? Feel free to unmute yourself.
Okay. All right. So I have buyers that I sold the house to back like in 2010 when I was licensed before, and I've always kept in touch with them. They bought a new house. I referred them to another realtor for that. Well, anyway, her parents are moving here from Pittsburgh. So I went through the online services, a referral, and
Yep.
in Pittsburgh, we don't have a HomeSmart agency in Pittsburgh. So I ended up getting a call from, well, a few calls, but one lady was from Remax that works right in that area, and I set it up with her to get in touch with with these people. They're going to sell their house in Pittsburgh, and then I'm going to help them buy a house here once they sell the house in Pittsburgh. So
Great.
it worked out well for me, you know.
That's perfect. And that's the way you need to think. And there are times that there isn't a HomeSmart location in that area. It's
Yeah,
okay to refer to another company. There doesn't have to be a HomeSmart. Of course, we love to keep it in the HomeSmart
yeah,
family, but at
yeah,
the end of the day, we just need to make sure that they get the right help.
right.
So
And I
good
had
for you.
when I went through that referral program, I had like an agent call me 2 minutes after I put the information in, literally
Ah,
2 minutes. And
you
then I got a couple of calls, like 3 calls after that, you know. So I just kept their information in case it's not a good fit. You know what I mean? So
Yes.
hopefully it'll be a good
Well, and
fit.
that's the thing, because, think about this. How many of our sellers, do meet with 2 and 3
Right,
agents before they make a decision?
right.
So maybe it's important to, let's take a look at that scenario. If most sellers, they're going to sell there, right?
Yes, they have to, and they have to sell there to move here. So,
So maybe it's worth it for you to refer the others, either 1 or 2 others as well, because don't think for a second that seller is not interviewing. So if you only gave them 1 referral, they
yeah,
they could choose somebody that they found themselves because that you only gave them 1. So
yeah,
maybe you need to help them discover more than 1 agent to shop for themselves, which shows bigger service on your part, and they're going to choose the agent they feel better about. You don't know any of them, so you
right.
might want to consider referring the others as well, because that seller needs every opportunity.
Okay. All right.
Yep.
Yeah. I was thinking about that
Yeah,
myself.
just because somebody called you in 2 minutes doesn't mean they're the right person for the job.
Oh, I know that. Yeah,
Yeah.
no,
So,
absolutely. Yeah.
so maybe get the others out there as well and explain to them as a seller that, if, you would, even if you were interviewing for that listing, you would still advise them to shop around, because sellers need to make informed decisions. When we're interviewing for a listing, everyone is shopping. They're at least looking at a couple of realtors.
Right.
Maybe you need to advise them too, and they'll feel better about that referral stream.
Right. Okay.
Awesome.
Thank
Yep.
you.
Thanks for sharing. Awesome.
You're welcome.
Yep. All right. So let's talk. By the way, again, referral form. Make sure you fill out that form. Tammy, you probably have, but we have a referral form right in our system. Go to the downloads, because you want to make sure that once you send out that referral, even if it didn't, don't wait until it becomes a listing. Don't wait until they sell them something.
Yeah.
When you coordinate with any referral source, you put that referral in writing so you have it.
Okay.
All right. Great.
Yep. Thank you.
Yeah, you bet. All right, so let's talk open houses. We mentioned this earlier, open houses. That is one of the biggest opportunities to find buyers in any market. Now, more and more buyers are going to open houses, and they're already working with an agent. That is the case. You will find that happening. But there are also many that are going to open houses that are just saying they have an agent, because buyers have learned that the best way to not be bothered after an open house is to tell the agent you already have an agent, and then they won't bother you. So you need to be able to ask questions during an open house and to gather information and to build rapport, because if they truly don't have an agent, they might consider you. Or if that doesn't work out with that agent, they might be happy now. And how many times do we see buyers are not always continuing to work with the agent they were already working with? So, allow yourself to provide yourself the opportunity and conversation with a buyer to build that rapport. So when we're looking at open houses, obviously right now, we're in a pandemic, and we need to know that there are restrictions around the COVID regulations and the social distancing requirements. So when you're setting up any open house, please make sure you fall within that. We're not going to discuss the exact details of it. They're posted. We post them. The RIAR posts them. All associations are posting them as well. but make sure you're watching your social distancing. Open houses today have become more of a group showing. So you can reach out and market an open house, get people to contact you in order to be able to schedule that open house, schedule time slots, or they stay outside. You allow somebody to register them and you text them when it's their turn for them to come in. Whatever that looks like, that shouldn't restrict you from building rapport. Quite frankly, some people will choose to work with you only because you respected the social distancing requirements of all of them. Okay, and Roxanne's mentioning Google Sheets for them to sign in. You know, that's perfect. What a great idea. So people don't want to touch your pen. They don't want to touch your clipboard. They don't want to do any of that. So if you're familiar with Google Sheets, you know, you can set something up where they will sign in. They can log in right from their own device. You know, I mean, whatever it is you can do. I believe there's a tool called Open House app, openhouse.com. There are different tools that you can use to avoid that interaction just for them to log in. They can text you their contact information, whatever that looks like, okay? So be mindful of that. But when you're scheduling an open house, also make sure that you're treating that like a business appointment. There are so many practitioners that schedule an open house, and if it's for 2 hours, they literally will only put in 2.5 hours worth of work. They drive to the open house, they put up the sign as they walk in the door, they go into the open house, they sit there for 2 hours, then they leave, you know, deal with all of the details and commotion, and then they leave and it's done. Make sure you are prospecting for every open house. Now, again, you've got restrictions for juggling all of those showings, but you need the most traffic possible in the best manner of managing it. Also, take the opportunity to prospect for future clients. An open house is opportunity time. If you don't treat it as opportunity time, it won't be an opportunity. So some of the different things that you can do, first and foremost, is market and canvas the area. So if you have the ability to canvas the area, now some people may not appreciate you knocking on their door, although some people will talk to you at their door. And you can say, we're hosting an open house around the corner tomorrow. I just wanted to make sure that you saw that. In the event that you know anybody looking to make a move, I would love for you to get them in touch with me so that we can show them through. Do you know anybody who's looking to buy? Most buyers come from neighbors of your listing, because if people have friends looking to buy a house, they'll call them about the houses in their neighborhood. It's a great opportunity to pick your neighbors, okay? So a neighbor is a really great source of leads for that open house and or listing in general. So when you have a new listing, prospect the neighborhood. When you have an open house, prospect that area, canvas that area, and make sure that you have all of that, okay? And again, with social distancing, you know, you've got to, you know, especially now more than ever is the buddy system. You need to be safe first and foremost, and not just with COVID. Unfortunately, in this business, you know, there are a lot of people that are out to harm people. So now more than ever, the buddy system is important, just to be able to stay within the restrictions, as well as to be able to manage the activity, logins, or anything like that. You know, and have someone there with you will help, all right? Most important is the follow through after an open house. You need to be in touch with people, even if they registered, even if they're working with another agent. You have the ability to follow up with them. Yes, even if they have an agent, you cannot solicit them. You need to be asking people, are you working with an agent if they're coming in? You know, find that out right up front. But then also just a simple thank you for coming to the open house, whether it's a text, whether it's a note, if you have their address, whatever that looks like. Thanks so much for coming to the open house. It was great to speak with you. You know, if I can answer any further questions, please feel free to reach out. Now you're asking them to, you know, for the ability to answer any questions. If they have an agent, you can say, if you or your agent have any questions, you know, I'm glad to help in any way. That's showing respect for whether or not they have an agent. But more importantly, it's showing that you're following up, that you appreciated their time. People ask me all the time, you know, what's the secret to success? How do you guarantee a long-term career? And there are two things that I always share. The two things are follow up and follow through. Okay, follow up on every lead and follow through on everything you say you're going to do. It's absolutely critical, especially when it comes to an open house. Make sure that you're following up and letting everybody know that you're available to answer any questions. Okay? Any questions on open houses? Any comments? Anything to share? Okay. Let's see, we have a comment. I usually contact the agent they say they are working with to let them know their client came through. Awesome, nice touch. They mention they're working with an agent. You're contacting that agent to let them know the client came through. I think that's a nice touch. Also allows you to get some feedback on that open house in case that client, you know, doesn't get back to you with any feedback. You might be able to get that feedback from that agent. So I think that's great. You know, and again, don't be afraid to follow up with that client as well if you have their contact information. All you're doing them is thanking them for coming through to the open house. That's showing your professionalism. There is a chance that they could end that relationship with that agent that they mentioned at some point. So your goal is to stand out and to be the person who showed that professionalism and also cared about their thoughts and making sure they had all their questions answered. Okay? So you know, those are some of the ways that we're going to find buyers. What we need to know is that we can't be all things to all people. Do not pretend to be, okay? If you cannot properly represent a buyer, excuse me, represent a buyer, don't undertake those services. If you don't know the areas that a buyer is looking in, don't undertake those services. Just because people want to refer you business doesn't mean that you should be the one handling that, okay? Don't go outside of your own area of expertise. The Code of Ethics says that you need to stay within your limit of expertise. And anytime you go beyond that, you need to refer to someone else in order to ensure that that client is represented. So, example, if you're licensed in Massachusetts, you know, and you know the nearby borders of either state on either side, okay? Let's say you're in Rhode Island and you know Rhode Island and you know the boundary and you know Attleboro and you know Seekonk, that's great. But somebody wants to buy a house in Lowell, okay? That's up further north in Massachusetts. Probably have never been to the town. Just because you have a license in Massachusetts doesn't mean you should be showing them properties in Lowell. Now, I understand that it's not that far, but do you know those areas? Do you know the school systems? Do you know the nuances of different neighborhoods? Do you know the geographical benefits of certain areas of those towns? Okay, you need to understand what, you know, some neighborhoods have sewers and water, some have well and septic. You know, what are all of the details surrounding the neighborhoods and the areas that you're going to be looking at? If those are areas that you don't know as well, you can't undertake those obligations. Your job is to protect that consumer. Now, I'm not saying don't stretch your boundaries, because ultimately, at the end of the day, that's what we do. And to an extent, you can absolutely learn enough about certain areas that you may not be as familiar with. What I'm saying is, generally speaking, don't stretch beyond just because you think that there's a commission attached to that sale. You know, if all you do is focus on the money, that money could be exactly why you lose your license, because you didn't know something. So when you at any point you question your ability to properly assist somebody, then that's when you need to step back and say, you know what, I think I need to refer this out, right? And take a look at it accordingly. Makes sense? So make sure you know that market. You understand what they're dealing with and what they need. Okay? Any thoughts on that? Again, I'm just kind of glancing at the chat box. So you know, let's talk about the call itself, the buyer call. A buyer calls you, they're looking for a house. Maybe they're calling you because of an open house. Maybe they're calling you on an ad. You posted an ad. You've got something online. You know, the call itself, when you're talking to buyers, when you're creating a rapport, okay, that you have two goals in any buyer call. Okay, first, your first and number one goal is to pre-qualify them. And I don't mean financially, to understand, to assess, are they a valid buyer? Are they actually ready to do something? Okay, and also in that call, you're looking to get the appointment. Ultimately, your goal is to get an appointment. Now, it could be to show the house, and that's okay. But I also urge you to consider, what are you doing to get them into the office to meet with you, to better understand their needs and potentially gain them as a client if you want to work with them. You don't want to work with everybody just because they want to buy. It doesn't mean you have to be the one to sell them a house. Okay, but you want to get them into the office to build a rapport and understand, is this somebody I want to work with? Okay, so when we look at your two goals, you're looking at, to assess their needs and to get an appointment. But their goals are different, completely different than yours. Okay, their goals first and foremost is to eliminate the property. Okay, now today's world, very limited inventory, but in a normal inventory market, buyers can only buy one property, right? So they're trying to narrow down their search. If they're calling or emailing or texting, whatever it is, they're trying to see if there's something wrong with that property or something with that property that doesn't meet their needs, so they can eliminate it from their list because they're trying to narrow down their focus. Okay? They're also trying to eliminate you. That's why people will text you or email you, because they don't want to talk to you. If they email you at 2 o'clock in the morning and you happen to be awake, do not respond. You're supposed to be asleep. Don't engage in a conversation at 2 o'clock in the morning with a buyer. Chances are they didn't want to talk to you, and that's why they sent you the email. They're just looking for information. So they're trying to narrow their search. They're trying to eliminate that property from their search, and they're also trying to eliminate you from the equation, because they don't like salespeople. In general, people think we're salespeople. Now, we talk all the time, we're not salespeople, we're in customer service. The hard reality is that they've dealt with too many people who don't think that way in real estate and treat their business like a sales job. So they're trying to limit their exposure to salespeople. So our goal when we set up this call, when I say call, it could be text, it could be email, it's this conversation. Whenever possible, get on the phone and hear a live voice. But I understand that there are times that that's not going to be possible. Okay, so when you're doing the conversation, having this conversation and doing the discussion, if you will, with the buyer, you need to ask questions. You need to ask open questions. So your open questions, if everything you ask is a yes/no question, you're never going to get any information. That property has 3 bedrooms. Do you need 3 bedrooms? Yes. Okay. It has 2 bathrooms. Do you need 2 bathrooms? No. Okay, where do I go from here? Okay. Ask them open questions. So example, like when you're talking about price, okay? Oh, can I ask you the price on that house? Maybe they called you on your sign. Can I ask you the price on that house? Well, that property is listed at $249,900. Is that the price you're looking in? They can't just say yes or no. Okay, they could, but you're trying to engage them in a conversation. But if all you say is what the price is, there's nowhere to go with that portion of that conversation. What price range are you looking in is a better question to ask them. That's $249,900. What price range are you looking in? They can't say no or yes to that. Okay, engage them in conversation, get a better understanding. Understand their motivation. Ask them questions, even during an open house. Why are you moving? When do you need to be at the new location? Do you have a house that you need to sell in order to be able to buy? Big question. You'd be amazed at how many people don't ask buyers if they have a house to sell, and they pass up that listing opportunity. Okay, what is the driving decision in making a move? What's causing you to even feel like moving? Maybe they're renting. Maybe it's just time to own, but maybe they own a home. What's driving you to make this move? Get them to talk to you. Create rapport on the phone. People will let their guard down and people will speak with you. Location, where are you looking to move? What's important to you in finding that setting? Are you looking for more of a size of the house or more of the setting? You know, do you need a big yard? What is a big yard? Describe what a big yard looks like. You'd be amazed that everybody's definition of big yard is different. They could be coming from a postage stamp lot in a neighborhood where they say they want a big yard, and a big yard to them could be a 1/4 acre or less. And immediately, for whatever reason, in our minds, we think a big yard is like an acre or 2. Okay, don't assume anything. Ask the questions. Understand their wants and needs. Okay. Now, when we talk about the interview process, we're going to hit on their wants and needs, just like we did in the seller series. But you know, what is important to you in finding a new home? How many bedrooms do you need? Why is that? How many in your family? Ask the questions that get them to talk more about what it is you need to know from them. Okay. How long do you have? When do you need to be in your new home? What's your timeline? What's your time frame for making a move? Okay. Get to understand when they need to be in. Are they realistic with their timeline? When do you need to be in your new home? Oh, I need to be in 2 weeks. Okay, well, chances are you may not be in 2 weeks. Maybe we should consider finding a rental, you know, which would cover that timeline. But you get to understand it, understand their finances. Be careful, because this is an initial phone call. You don't want to get into confidential information, okay? Have you spoken with a lender about your finances? Have you been pre-approved? Watch those wordings, because if you just say, "Oh, are you pre-qualified?" It sounds like you're not willing to work with anybody unless they've already gone through the steps. Some buyers actually need your help determining what those steps are. So ask the question differently. Have you spoken with a lender about your financing? Oh, no, we haven't yet. Well, I work with several lenders. Maybe I can refer someone to you who can answer some questions as well. And let's do this. I don't mind. Maybe we can set a time where you can meet with them at my office, and we can get a better sense of what they need from you, and what a better sense of your search as well. Would that be okay? Okay. You know, get an opportunity. By the way, best way for you to learn financing details is to attend pre-approval sessions whenever possible and just listen. Now, you need to know that that information is confidential, and not every buyer will want you in that session. However, just listening to the types of financing and why the loan officer feels that that financing is best suited for that buyer will help you hone your skills in advising people in finance. Okay, so let me refer you to somebody who can help you with that. Okay, also in that call, initial call and open house and what have you, ask them, are you working with agent? You know, are you working with an agent? How are you going about your search? How are you finding the properties? I could set you up on a search that automatically provides you with new listings as soon as they hit the market. If you're going onto Zillow and different sites, there are some sites that have a 3-day turnaround with the upload, whereas we provide as realtors right through the MLS a search that can come to you the moment something hits the market that meets your criteria. Is that a service that would be a benefit to you? Okay, so get to build rapport, get to understand what they're looking for, you know, and understand those details. Okay, now as you're talking to buyers, you're going to be trying to do some fact finding. It's a fact finding mission for you. You're trying to get a sense, you know, are these viable buyers? Okay, are they realistic? Will they actually buy a house someday? Some people truly are just looking, and some people say they're looking for a family member, or they're looking for their child, or they're looking for their parents. You know, sometimes they're just saying that just again to defer the call and to avoid follow-up. But you know, still follow through with everything that you're looking at. But also, you want to work to classify your buyers. Okay, what are the motivations of your buyers, and how do we classify them such that you allocate your time in follow-through? So let's look at A, B, and C buyers. Okay, A buyers are buyers that are ready, willing, and able to act now. They can perform, they're able to make a move, or they need to make a move. Those are A buyers. B buyers are ready and willing, but maybe they can't make a move right now. Maybe they're in a lease that doesn't expire for 6 months and they can't break the lease because they can't afford the expense in the terms of breaking that lease. So maybe they want to do this desperately, but they just, you know, can't do it. There's a time restriction for them. Or C buyers. They don't need to make a move. They don't know when they're going to make a move. They're not quite sure what they're going to do it, and they're just starting their search. So you've got to look at them. Now, you're going to handle each call the same because these are all viable opportunities for you. But you need to focus on the most ready and willing buyers. Always close for the appointment to see if you can get to the table, to build a rapport with them and you know, get them to that next point. There are many buyers who just may not be ready right now, but may be ready shortly. And you have a lot of loan officers who will help them establish the path to home ownership. Sometimes they might have credit that needs repair. Sometimes they just may need a little time under their belt. So don't discount the buyers. When I say classify, it's more about what you're doing to follow up with them and how you prioritize your time. Because, you know, the A buyers, you're going to get them in the car and you're going to get them out looking at houses. Now, I know when I say get them in the car, it's just an expression because, you know, years ago, by the way, before the internet, we literally got them in the car. We got them in our car and we didn't let them out until they bought something. Because we drove around with the MLS book and we drove around looking at houses. They had no way of knowing what houses are out there. Now, as everything evolves, they have more information than we do on the properties that they're looking at. So when I say get them in the car, it's more about getting them out working, get them out looking, be in touch with them, follow through with them, make sure that they know that you are their agent and you are providing them with the resources they need. Okay, B buyers. Okay, you're going to work to try and overcome whatever that obstacle is. If they have a lease and they need to hold off, then you're going to just make sure you maintain communication until that happens. If there's some credit issues, you're going to find a loan officer who's willing to help them find ways to overcome that credit obstacle or find alternate financing that can work within that credit obstacle. So you're going to work with them to overcome whatever obstacles they're facing. And C buyers, you may just put them on a drip campaign. You may put them on a follow-up program so that you're in touch with them. And maybe you set them up on an automated search in MLS, touch base with them from time to time. MLS searches you can set up where you're receiving the same search, so you see the searches at the same time they do. You can send them right to your website because your HomeSmart website offers the ability to set up buyer searches where they can automatically be notified. So feed that. You've got the IDX feature right in your HomeSmart website. So drive people to that website. Okay, but you know, ultimately, their next step in any part of this search is going to be getting pre-approved, right? You know, and let's look at pre-approval versus pre-qualification. Pre-qualification should be a thing of the past. Okay, no lenders should be giving pre-qualification letters today. Every letter should be a pre-approval letter. Okay, pre-qualification is just a general conversation with a buyer, and they give a pre-qual letter based on the information that's provided by the buyer. Nothing's been verified or validated. A pre-approval is where a lender has validated, they've reviewed things like tax returns, pay stubs, and what have you. There are lenders that will actually do a full approval process for a buyer, where they have a full approval process in place, and it's subject only to an appraisal. You know, so there are a lot of different methodologies that can be done with a pre-approval. So your goal is to help folks be in the driver's seat. In today's market especially, when they find a buyer, that a property that meets their needs, they need to be prepared to act. Don't have a buyer fall in love with a house and then go out and search a loan officer in order to get pre-approved. I guarantee you, if it's a quality house in a good location, in good condition, and priced well, that in the time that they're calling a loan officer to get a pre-approval letter, the house is already being negotiated and sold. So your buyers need to be educated, and that's why we do so in the buyer interview process. They need to be educated about the market and understand the time sensitivity. When they lose out on a few properties, they'll finally believe you if they haven't done so already. But they need to be properly informed so that they can compete. That pre-approval letter provides confidence in the seller in whether or not to even consider entertaining that offer. When there are multiple offers at stake, then the seller has to be confident about that, right? So you need to know you have a buyer that has creditworthiness. You need to know that they're prepared to act. The seller needs to know the same. The seller needs to see that they are a ready, willing, and able buyer. And the only way to do that is with a pre-approval letter. Okay, so your goal is to meet with them, like I mentioned, that consultation. I call it a buyer orientation, a buyer interview. Your goal is to be able to meet with the buyers to understand their needs, talk about representation, talk about the things that they're going to encounter in their search, in the process of buying a home. Education is key. Okay, so find the opportunity to say, you know, hey, let's do this. I don't mind. Let's find some time where you can come to the office and we can talk about the search process, talk about everything that you're going to encounter in your transaction, so that as you move forward, you're better informed, better aware of everything you're going to encounter in your search, so that we can start on the right foot. I can also explain to you, Mr. and Mrs. Buyer, about representation, the benefits of having an agent represent you in the transaction, and what it means to you and your privacy and your success when an agent is not working for you. So let's find a time that we can meet and just lead right into that conversation. Find that opportunity. Okay, we're going to talk about that buyer interview in our upcoming session, but I want you to be aware that that's your goal on this phone. Now, you know, on this phone call, if you can get out and look at a property, ask them to allow a little time after the showing. If they just want to see one house, I'm not saying don't go out and show them a house if they didn't meet with you, but know that you could be spinning your wheels if all you do is show up to a property and you haven't met them before, especially if it's an internet lead. The last thing you want to do with an internet lead is go out and show a property, and they show up at the property, the listing agent is already there, you show up late, and the buyer is wondering who you are because they thought they were calling the listing agent. Okay, find a way to build rapport. Get there early, schedule a showing, but give the buyer a time that's 15 minutes before the showing so that you can build rapport out in the front yard before you go in. Okay, whatever that looks like, find the opportunity. Also say, hey, let's look at the house, but let's allow a half-hour time. You know, we can talk a little bit after the showing and, you know, get to understand better your needs and what you're looking for. Okay, find that opportunity. All right, you can set them up on a search. Okay, you have that ability right through MLS. By the way, chances are they have other searches going. So a search is not a selling tool. Everybody does it. Okay, Zillow has it. Any other features, Realtor.com, RI Living. You know, keep in mind, RILiving.com is the public face of the MLS system. So if there's any site that you're asking and suggesting your buyers go to have the most up-to-the-minute status results, it's RILiving.com. That's where they should be going because that's the public face of MLS. All right, so watch for that in any of your dealings. But offer to set them up on an automated search. Get them going. They may have one going. It just may not be as up-to-date as some of the others. Okay, so you know, offer to do that. It also allows you to get their email address, okay, because you need to set up that search to go to their email address. Okay, so when you're setting up interviews, when you're setting up showings, you may have people who are coming in from out of state. We talked about the referral benefits, people coming in from out of state, relocation customers. Know that that is a specialty all in itself. Somebody's coming in from out of state, they are expecting tour guide service. They are expecting you to show them the areas, to help them understand what the areas, what the benefits are, help them narrow down their search. It's not just about setting up showings on a house. Oh, you're coming into town next weekend? Okay, great. I can set up a couple of houses on Saturday. No, they will be out talking to many realtors unless you say, why don't you block out the whole weekend and here's what we'll do, and I'll set up a schedule and we'll go out and take a look and what have you. Sure, you're going to allow them a little bit of time to drive around. They need to get to understand neighborhoods themselves. But if you're not prepared to cater to them for the entire window of time that they're in town, do not undertake relocation prospects. Okay, that's what they're looking for. They're looking for full service, They're looking for people to walk them through areas, neighborhoods, etc. So be sure that you're prepared for those services. Okay, and there are different types of buyers and different things that people are looking for and needs, but you need to cater to them, and you need to be prepared to do so. You need to love spending time with buyers if you're going to promise to over deliver to them. Make sense? Who has thoughts? Who has anything to share? I'm watching the comment box. I don't see any comment boxes. Anybody raise your hand, share. Those are the types of prospects we're going to be dealing with. Those are the methodologies by which you want to secure that working relationship by working with buyers and gathering the information. That's the general overview of working with buyers. We're running just about on time here and a little bit ahead even. So if there are any questions, any thoughts, okay, that's the intro to the series. So anybody want to share anything at all? Such a quiet group today. So I'll allow people just a few seconds to type. If you have any questions, feel free to raise your hand, share any thoughts. I appreciate you guys being here. Again, that's our lead into the overview. We get more specific as we hit each session. I see comments on thank yous. You're welcome. So with that, we will end today's session. Again, we dig in. Watch for that, gang, because next week our session is the buyer interview itself. Okay, finding the opportunity to secure that buyer in a buyer agreement if you want to work with that buyer, because again, you don't have to work with everybody. Just because they want to buy a house doesn't mean you have to be the one to sell them that house. So we're going to talk about that interview, how to conduct it, how to inform that buyer in the overall process, and take that client to a buyer working agreement if that's your choice in that relationship. So tune in again next week. Appreciate you guys being here. Make it a great day. Any questions, feel free to bring them over. Anything that comes to mind after this session, bring them over into next week's session. I will see you all then. Have a great day.